Saul and Battery, hosted by
Jeans
and Kelly. Forget what you know. Forget what you know. A Saul and Battery.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to A Saul and Battery, the show where Kelly does all the work. I'm Kelly at KELLYTHUL on Twitter and Instagram, and with me, as always, is the awesome
Jeans, and I'm YEUNGJEANS on Instagram and Twitter, and he does do all the work. This is accurate.
Well, do the grunt work. The important work, the being interesting part, you take care of, but some of those things. So, but in the spirit of me doing all the work, guess what? I got to do the 30-second recap again. But
yes,
soon,
sir.
I think soon, somebody's going to say, "Let me do it. Let me do it." But
so
not yet.
accurate. Or do we have someone else joining us?
Maybe. Maybe there's somebody else who's watched this recently who might want to try it. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, all right. We'll knock off the 30-second recap and get to talking about one of my favorite episodes of Season 3 called Chicanery, which is also one of my favorite words. So it's very cool as well. So, 30-second recap. Chuck wants to let's restart, shall we? Chuck wants to woo Rebecca. We're reminded Jimmy is the good brother, Chuck is the horrible brother. We get to finally check back in with our criminal vet, who we'll call Small Spaces for this episode. Mesa Verity's addressed, Howard frets, and Chuck's ego gets batteried. So that'll be the recap for this week.
There you go.
It's a good I think this is a really good episode. What are your thoughts, top line, before we get into it?
The whole it's the disbarment hearing. So
Yeah.
it's good.
Yeah. It's good. It's Jimmy and Kim running angles. And this will be interesting because we've mentioned on past episodes that Jean's path through Better Call Saul is different than maybe a lot of folks, in that she did the whole Better Call Saul route and then came back and did the Breaking Bad route. So she, although now probably watching it this time was different, but for us Breaking Bad folks, when the vet mentions Jimmy needs a guy who's good being a pickpocket, and the vet asks, does he have to fit into a small space? We're all like, oh, it's Huel, it's Huel. We're so excited. We're thinking it might be Huel. There's the following scene where you do actually see that it is indeed Huel. He makes a reappearance. And just to make sure you knew it was Huel, there's a little bump, and you see it, and you think, I'm pretty sure that was Huel, but they lock in on him at the end and say, in case you missed it, this is Huel. Huel Babineau. One of the most awesome characters in the Breaking Bad universe. I'm a big Huel fan. Are you?
I like him. Yeah, I think he's fun. I think he's a good side character. You know, he's kind of reminiscent of and then in movies in the 50s, they always had these little tiny character actors that would have like big personalities and tiny parts, and that's kind of what he does there, I think. I mean, not necessarily in this episode. He barely says a thing this episode, but I think in general, it's kind of the role he plays, and I like those kinds of things. It's a nice touch and added detail of the fabric of the world they live in.
But what he does say is awesome. Because it's towards the tail end of the episode. He goes, about 2 hours ago, right? And Huel gets up and goes, about an hour 4 to 3 minutes ago. And it's just boom,
To be precise.
boom. He is so awesome. I love Huel.
Yeah.
And the actor comedian who plays Huel, it's kind of interesting because between Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, from a health perspective, he did some work and lost a ton of weight. So the Huel we see in Better Call Saul is a lot smaller than the Huel we see in Breaking Bad.
True story.
Which is the inverse of what we see happen to Todd as we move into El Camino. But we'll talk about that another day. So, but it was good to see him getting after it, and it was awesome to see him. Big fan. And we get a big dose of Rebecca as well. Your thoughts on Rebecca?
I was just gonna say, I like Rebecca, although I don't quite understand her. I do like her. I'm very curious as to what exactly sort of broke them apart, because it's clear that Chuck didn't start having his problems until after she was already gone.
I think Chuck had plenty of problems before. I think Chuck was an arrogant.
Well, yes. I think he is. I think he's very pompous, and I think there's I think this episode did a very good job of demonstrating that he's really no better than what he's complaining about. He went through elaborate plans in order to fool Rebecca into thinking that the electricity was out in his house. And he's got workers. I mean, he's paying people to come in and place things in his home, fixtures and whatnot, to make it look like things are normal. So I really think, it sort of gives you a very clear idea of who Chuck really is, which is not much better than what he's complaining about with his brother. Just because he's not defecating into his sunroof doesn't mean that he's any less gross. This is someone that he was married to. This is someone that, he shared his life with and still cares for. And he was like, should I wear the wedding ring? Should I not wear what should I do? So he's still hooked on her, and he's not going to tell her the truth about this. He's no better than what he thinks Jimmy is.
And one of my major irritations is he's not precise, because he didn't the alleged defecation wasn't on a sunroof. It was through a sunroof, I believe, technically speaking. But it was a good. That was another good. The Chicago sunroof, along with Scott Cobbler and all sorts of other fun things. So the fun terms we get from Better Call Saul, so it's pretty cool on there. I don't. Rebecca seems like so together.
She does.
And this is where it kind of breaks your heart a little bit, because you see that the opening scene where it's Jimmy helping Chuck, doing everything he can to help Chuck get ready for this little trick he's trying to pull over to say, I'm fine, and I'm going to tell this story on how the power went out. And you see Jimmy asking perfectly legitimate questions like, maybe you should tell her, and do we really want to go this way? And you can tell he's a good brother. He really is.
And he's a good person. He's not comfortable lying, to her, and when he knows that potentially it could cause more damage and to their relationship, to his relationship with, her relationship with Chuck. And it shows just how nice a guy he really is. And yes, he may do some shady things, but he does it for really good intentions. And I think that's the thing with Chuck, is that Chuck's not lying to anybody for good intentions. He's a selfish little bastard.
Yes, he is.
And there's no good intentions behind any of his crap,
Yeah. And oftentimes there's not with Jimmy's either, but sometimes there is, and so that
there's a lot of times he's gearing it towards something, and it's there's an end result that is not just, I hate this person.
Right. Oh yeah, it's never out of like hurting somebody. I mean, he's certainly comfortable scamming people, and that's one of his things he likes to do. But in terms of actually like personally going after somebody, you really don't see that beyond when the kind of whole Chuck Jimmy thing starts to spin out of control a little bit, which is unfortunate.
I have to say, she handled that whole slapping the cell phone out of her hand thing in a manner that I don't think most of us would have.
No.
I think
I
she
know-
was,
I
he
know
was like, it's
you would.
impolite, and I was like, we're buying this. It's
Yeah.
impolite
I
to be
guess
on.
you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
like, I didn't know you felt that way. I was like, are you serious?
I'm predicting a different reaction from you. Should that scenario have played out? It
Yeah,
she showed remarkable reserve, kind of, which maybe plays into she's kind of dealt with Chuck being a little funky before. Maybe, I don't know.
yeah.
But-
It was almost like she knows what he gets like, and she didn't want to upset him because like she's like a little bit of a pro in how she handled him, but it was definitely out of line. Slapping a cell phone out of somebody's hand, regardless of how rude you think they're being, is not acceptable behavior. Certainly not adult behavior. And I really felt that she just kowtowed to him a little quickly there.
Yeah, it did seem, I mean, and unless it was just based off experience where she's like, oh, here he is going off the rails again. I got to be the Chuck whisperer. I got to calm him down.
Yeah,
oh, you're right,
exactly.
Chuck. And so maybe past experience led that to it. But the whole irony of him talking about the rudeness of someone taking a cell phone call, and his response to that is to slap it out of their hands. It's just like,
Yeah.
I mean, somehow how he thought that was going to work, but it was interesting to see. And as usual, we got the Bob Odenkirk facial reactions throughout this episode on all sorts of things, which are super awesome. He conveys a lot of that.
He's us. Like we're Jimmy in that whole dinner situation. We're like, really, just tell her, like, come on, you're telling. Oh my God, what did you just do?
Yeah.
Like, say something, like, that he plays like sort of our role. Everybody in the audience is saying the exact same thing that Jimmy is saying through that dinner.
Yeah, the reasonable thing to say on that. Yeah.
And that's scary when Jimmy is the voice of reason.
Yeah. I sort of, but I mean, Jimmy pre-Saul,
Yeah.
I think a lot of times he lands in a not unreasonable space. Now he's shortcut friendly, and that's a different kind of issue. But overall, that's the sad part about the series is that this is a good person ultimately, but that stops. And so we're goody for season 6 where we get to see it stop. So that'll be fun. Peter Gould had in some recent interviews talked about season 6 is going to be a little sad, a little rough. But I mean, it ultimately has to be because you've got to take a character we've now come to really root for. And I mean, I was always a big Saul fan in Breaking Bad, but not because I thought this is an A1 guy. I just thought he was hilarious and funny, and I enjoyed his shtick.
His being highly inappropriate and charming at the same time is an interesting sort of dichotomy on the show. And he just, he's much, the perverted comments towards Francesca or mail-in order brides or, just...
Or masseuses.
Just, sort of going from like this, this boyfriend with Kim and this, that sort of, respectful of relationships and wants people to be happy and, to that guy, what happened, right?
Yeah. And the thing I've been so impressed about this universe is within Breaking Bad, there was this development of all these very interesting side characters. So Skinny Pete, Badger, super fun, kind of neat little fringe characters that were really, really cool. And with Better Call Saul, we get the criminal vet, who's fantastic, who's ridiculously worried about Jimmy's treatment of a goldfish, which I thought was hilarious. And his discussion around male and female, there was a lot of good stuff going on. The vet's always been awesome, and a lot of time we've been seeing the vet interact with Mike, but here we get the vet and Jimmy. So it's always good to see the vet. So then we get, the riddle that is Howard Hamlin. I mean, I think probably largely motivated by just simple PR, but also to a degree going like, this doesn't seem like a good path, Chuck. I mean, I think there's a little bit of him going, do you really want to do this? and all that. I mean, some of it is, a lot of it is to save face for his organization. But I do think, kind of in the back of
Sure.
his mind, he's like, Chuck, Chuck, you're trying to destroy Jimmy, and is that what you want to do? And so he's a tough guy to pin down.
Right, and I think he's got to be very careful with that because his company, Hamlin and McGill, was footing the bill for the private investigators that were sleeping overnight, expecting Jimmy to pop through the door. So he's culpable in this situation to some degree, which so I think he's trying to handle both Chuck and his firm at the same time and trying to come out in the best light possible.
One of my favorite moments of this episode was him kind of throwing out, well, there was concern about nepotism, and Kim going on, so you're Hamlin, and McGill? So she kind of she nails him on that.
Yeah.
Who's
the other Hamlin? My dad. Busted.
Yeah. So, but he's crafty and creative because he's very quickly pivoted to Davis and May, and it was like, would you like me to talk about that a little bit? Which would not serve the case well at all. But Kim, awesome. Right. Nope, I'm good, thanks. You can just pipe right down, Howard. But I thought the actor did a great job with how. Howard's a complex dude to a degree. It's hard to kind of I don't know, complex is the word, but he's hard to entirely pin down because he's not all bad. He's not 100% good. I don't know. It's tough. For me, it's tough.
Right. And I think, he has a very peculiar relationship with Chuck in that he does whatever Chuck wants. And even though it puts him in very bad positions at times, not hiring him and, to the point where, Kim's ready to pick a fight with him over things that are going on, because he's coming off in the way that Chuck wants him to, and he sort of he mentions that he was afraid that Jimmy was going to punch Chuck, and that's kind of why he stepped in. And I mean, really, I feel like given the history and given the way that Chuck has constantly interfered with Jimmy making any type of progress in a career at the place where he was hired, for reasons that are obviously a little bit shady. You can't have a father and son business and then not allow a brother to come in. That doesn't make any sense. Seriously, I feel like he should just let him pop him. Seriously, you two work it out and let me get out of this thing. Yeah. I really felt like he should have just let him hit him. Stepped away.
Yeah, but I don't think he would have. I mean, I think that was kind of the thing. I think Jimmy would have used continued to use the words to kind of to say how horrible you are, as a brother. Exactly. But it's tough on that, and I really do think Howard was impressed that Jimmy did what he did to get the degree, and I do think Howard was open to him joining the firm.
Yes.
But then because, and to me, this is one of the most redeeming qualities of Howard is that Chuck puts a kibosh on it, but Howard knows how awful that would be, so he takes the heat. I'm the guy that's saying no to Jimmy.
The bad guy.
Yeah, that's a tough thing to do. But I guess it comes probably from Chuck and his dad working together, building the firm and commitment and all those types of things.
And it's just but it's a very deep, interesting, weird relationship that Howard feels that he has to take the brunt of this crap all the time when it's very clearly family crap.
Yep.
I don't know, and it has no place in a business. It has no, in a professional setting, Chuck's garbage. I mean, he's the one who got Jimmy hired there in the first place. So his crap about, we can't make him a lawyer for whatever reason, nepotism, blah, blah, blah. It's all garbage. And I think Howard's smart enough to see that. It's very interesting that he would go ahead and take the brunt anyway, knowing that this is sort of, unprofessional, ridiculous behavior.
Yeah.
If it was nepotism, then he shouldn't have hired him in the first place. I don't know.
Yep. Nope, I'm with you.
I don't think that Howard's a great lawyer from what I've seen.
I don't
He
think
doesn't seem to take the chair very much, but
no.
but I mean, he
he's an
does tend to
orchestrator.
handle the. Yeah, he does tend to handle the business of the firm, and so that does put him in an awkward position, I feel.
Yeah, he's the face. He's got the look. He's just kind of the schmoozer on that. And I know with your deep background, you have some concerns with his skincare, but we'll just say Howard's pretty.
I do.
But I don't know. I'm not ashamed to say, good-looking man. He does a good job. But yeah, I it's fun because it's nice because you have these. There's not like simple stereotypical characters. There's like multiple.
Right.
Kim's hard to figure out. It gets even harder to figure out as things goes on. Howard's hard to figure out. Huel, not so hard to figure out. But that's cool. Huel's just awesome. So that's pretty cool. And then of course we get treated to the whole hearing scene, which all sorts of stuff going on there. The the clear dichotomy between how Jimmy's treated and Chuck's treated. Jimmy and Kim walking in, just kind of without any big fanfare. Chuck, they pass the cones that are in place for Chuck's vehicle to eventually arrive. They're doing all these types of things for Chuck. It's clear that everything is biased towards Chuck, and the balance of power is not good. But I did think the panel was fair in that they didn't just keep shutting down when there were certain questions that kind of came up. And then, of course, the big part of this episode was the chicanery that played around. It's a very interesting thing of Jimmy talking about, so you could tell if there was something around, and Chuck going, in the smarmiest way possible, just, Jimmy, is there something in your pocket? It's just like, ugh. And Jimmy puts out the cell phone, and Chuck, there was no battery in it. And you can just, you can tell Jimmy's he's not relishing this moment, but he knows it has to be done. At least that's the way I read it.
I agree. I think Jimmy is not enjoying this process. He doesn't want to be disbarred a little bit more though than he is worried about his brother at this point.
Yeah, I think he's taking care of himself.
It's that statement that he made when he was sitting on the curb in the last episode, right? Like, you're going to find yourself alone, and this is how you're going to die because you behave like this, but he doesn't say that like to be a jerk. It's facts. Like, I was the person who was there for you. I'm not anymore. And Chuck gets really angry that Jimmy brings Rebecca in from wherever she is in the world to because it's very clear that from their dinner meeting that she's touring.
Yeah, 4,000 miles away puts her out of the United States, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So, he brings her in from wherever she's at, and I know things get a little twisted the next episode, and I know, kind of Kim gives Jimmy this, she's going to hate you when this is over. And she's not wrong, but I don't think it was completely to throw Chuck off his game. I think he knew, like I said, making that statement, sitting on the curb saying, the person who is there for you isn't here anymore. He knew that his brother was going to need somebody, and Rebecca is really the only other person in Chuck's life outside of Howard. And I mean, I don't know that I'd be trusting anything to Howard, to be quite frank. There was a lot of weird stuff going on in the beginning with Howard and whether or not he was going to buy Chuck out of the company and sending him checks for things. It was strange. So I feel like this is really, in Jimmy's eyes, the only other available person. And he's kind of almost like really doing something genuinely nice. And it does sort of help him out in the end, but he's doing it because he knows that Chuck is not going to be okay after this.
Yeah, I also think he was hedging his bet a little bit to say, I need Chuck to go all in on I'm fine and I can tell these things and it's perfectly normal and this is a condition and it's physical. And by having Rebecca there, he knew, one, it would make him uncomfortable because he's got to now kind of admit to her things he's trying to hide from her. So he's getting him, I think there was a benefit to having him a little bit off balance, but it was interesting to see. But it did not go well for Chuck. No. I do think in terms of favorite quote of the episode, I go back to what you just talked about, which was Kim and Jimmy at the vending machine, and Kim turning to Jimmy, go, she's going to hate you when this is all over. And Jimmy's like, yep. So he knows how it's going to play out. But, and we'll get to see a little bit more of that obviously next episode. But Jim and Kimmy they outflanked Howard and Chuck. So
True story.
It'll be interesting to see. So I think a super fun episode. We get Huel back, which is yay. A little more Francesca, who's, I think, starting down the road of becoming embittered. Just little pieces on there. But they did a nice job in kind of setting it up. And we got to see the vet again, so I'm super happy about that. So I think a fun episode.
I think it was fun too. I just wanted to mention really quick. One of my, and it's a weird thing, but one of my favorite parts is when Chuck is sitting in his house and he's rehearsing what he's going to say about his brother being awful and the law being more important. And at one point he's like, what does he say? That's sanctimonious.
Yep.
And I was like, but you are.
Physician, heal thyself.
I
Really, Chuck?
Perfect.
Oh, gosh, you sounding sanctimonious? Imagine that.
I know. It was like the writers just couldn't help themselves.
Yeah. Which I think really helps underline how kind of vacuous he is, because it's all at this point, I'm just here to screw Jimmy and get him disbarred. So how do I sound reasonable that that's not my major objective, and it's all theater.
Right, and because he knows how awful he is, and that's I think one of the worst parts about Chuck is that he knows what kind of a dick he's being.
Yeah, but he's okay with it.
Yeah, he is. And that's and I think that's kind of where there is separation between him and his brother, because Jimmy ultimately does not feel good about doing these things. He doesn't feel good about making his brother feel like he's crazy. He doesn't feel good about pulling the wool over people's eyes that he cares about or knows. I mean, obviously, con man stuff aside. And Chuck has no problem with it.
Nope.
Like, just moral compass gone. If it's not associated with the law, doesn't matter.
Yeah, and it's this whole process of holding the law up is this shining light, and then the behaviors around what Chuck does, you're like, so he's an interesting character. Michael McKean nails him. Does a fantastic. Everybody does. I mean, everybody that plays a role just kind of knocks it out of the park, which makes this so much fun to watch. So really, really cool. So,
but is the law a beacon, or is it an excuse?
He says it's a beacon.
I don't think it is. I think it's convenient.
Yeah, I think this goes back to Chuck. His mother always liked Jimmy better. Rebecca seemed to find Jimmy funnier than Chuck.
I feel
and so he's
exactly.
And he's like, how can this guy, be more likable than the amazing Austin? And Chuck's like a really smart guy, but his his bitterness around the charmingness that is Jimmy really eats him up, and we'll see more as time goes by. Excellent. Well, as always, highly enjoyable. Looking forward to that first Gene's 30-second recap. I feel it coming. I feel it coming soon. But if not, I'll be ready. So we'll see on that. Any other last thoughts before we wrap up this week?
No, I'm good.
Okay, good. Thanks for watching, folks. Bye.
See you later.